everyone, in this video I'll be showing you how to make a retro pinup swimsuit. The one I'll be making is a one piece, but you can always make it a two piece. And the skirt part is optional. Just be creative in adjusting the pattern any way you like. Before you start sewing, take a small piece of the spandex you'll be using and do a couple test runs to see how your stitches are and the tension. If you can, use nylon thread to sew your swimsuit because it'll stretch better with your swimsuit. But if you don't, you can use cotton. I used cotton and it worked just fine. When sewing spandex, you want to use a ballpoint needle so it doesn't mess up your fabric. This was my first time making a swimsuit or even working with spandex, so if you feel discouraged, don't worry. If you're a sewer, you'll do great. If you recreate this project, I would love to see it. You can send me a picture on Facebook or you can hashtag it CraftyAmy on Instagram. Thank you for watching! You will need 1 yard of printed Lycra, aka spandex, and 1 yard of white or nude Lycra for the lining, sewing notions, and a tank top and bottom swimsuit for your template. Start by folding your tank top in half with the front side on the outside. Trace around the tank top with 1 inch or 1.5 inches for seam allowance. It's better to cut a little too much than to cut too small. Put your fabric on fold and cut along the lines you traced. Mark your front left and your front right so you don't get them mixed up. Place them right sides together and sew down the middle of your front piece. To trace the back side of the tank top, fold the front sides together in half. Don't forget to mark your back left and your back right. Place them right sides together and sew down the middle of your back piece. I chose to trace a bottom swimsuit because it covers more than underwear. Start at the bottom seam and add 1 inch to 1.5 inches seam allowance. Fold it in half so you can get a symmetrical cut. Do the same steps for the front. Now you have a front piece and a back piece for your bottom half of your swimsuit. Repeat all the same steps you just did with the lining. Here I'm sewing the front piece and I'm starting at the corner and making a little angle and then turning the fabric and continue sewing down. This is so it'll be easier to fold the hem down. Now I'm sewing the back piece. Place both pieces right sides together and sew the side seams. This is what it should look like so far. By the way, I cut the back a little lower. Here's how the angle looks the way we sewed on the front of the bathing suit. Inside the seam allowance, cut a little snip at the angle. Sew the lining to the bathing suit right sides together. Do the same little angle stitch at the front of the bathing suit like we did to the printed one. Now you have both pieces. This step is optional, but if you want padding on your bust, take an old swimsuit and take out the padding. If you want the padding permanently on the swimsuit, place it on the wrong side of the lining. If you want to be able to remove it to put it in other swimsuits, place it on the right side. I'll be doing it on the right side so I can take them out anytime. With your extra fabric lining, make a pocket following the shape of the padding. Allow seam allowance and place it on the lining of your swimsuit. Sew along the pocket, leaving an opening at the top. If you're sewing the padding on the wrong side, place the padding inside the pocket and sew it all around. I'm placing the padding outside the pocket as a guide. This is how it should look like if you're not sewing the pocket on permanently. Trim the seam allowance so you have less bulk. Now you can place the padding inside and take it in and out anytime to place it in other swimsuits. Place the lining and the swimsuit right sides together. Line up the middle seams together. Pin and sew the top part of the swimsuit. Flip it over and sew the seam allowance to the lining. The purpose of the seam is so the lining doesn't roll out in front of the bathing suit. Sew on top of the right side of the lining with the seam allowance right under. You shouldn't be able to see the stitchings on the right side. This gives a more cleaner look. Cut a strip that's 3 inches by 60 inches long. If your fabric isn't that long, you can always cut 2 pieces or more and sew them together to make one long strip. Pin the seams together so they stay in place. Find the midpoint of the strip you cut and place the right side of the strip onto the wrong side of the swimsuit. Pin it all around the raw edges. Sew the strip all the way around the raw edges. Leave ½ inch for seam allowance. This is how it should look like so far. Fold the strip in twice all around the raw edges and pin them in place. As you're folding, make sure you're covering the other stitches. Do the same to the rest of the strip. Fold the ends of the strips in half and sew them right sides together. Trim the seam allowance. Flip it right side out and point the corner out. Now you can finish folding the rest of the strip. Start by sewing on one end of the strip and continue sewing all the way to the other end of the strip. Sew as close to the edge as you can. Make sure you're sewing on the right side of the swimsuit. Now you should have a nice clean finish on the right side. Don't worry if it's not nice on the inside, no one's gonna see it. To make it cinched at the bust, take embroidery floss and wrap it around your finger to make a knot. Make about 4 to 5 up and down stitches and then pull to make the cinch. Put the needle through the folds and make a knot to finish your stitch. Now you're all done with the top part of your swimsuit. After sewing the crotch seams, place them right sides together and sew all around through the leg holes. Make sure the seam allowances are open so there's less bulk at the crotch. Now sew the lining and the seam allowances together. When you get towards the middle, you're going to have to stop and go to the other side and do the same and meet the other stitches in the middle. Do the same to the other leg hole. Sew the sides right sides together. This is how the bottom swimsuit should look like so far. The stitch we did here will prevent the lining from flipping out to the front. Find the midpoint of the front and back of the bottom of the swimsuit. Measure the part on your waist where the swimsuit will lie on. I added an inch for seam allowance. My measurement came out to 32. So with this circle chart, I look for 32 on the first column and I look across to the last column, and the radius for me is 5 1/4. Find the measurement on this chart to fit you by finding your waist measurement, then circle radius. By placing my fabric on fold, I'm going to measure 5 1/4 from the corner. Cut along the markings you drew. The length of the skirt is determined how long you would want your skirt to be. It can be short or long. Mine will be 7 inches. Cut a duplicate so you have 2 pieces to make a whole circle. Place the 2 half circles right sides together and sew the sides. After that, line up the seams to find the midpoints. Line up the side seams together and line up the midpoints to the midpoint on the bottom of the swimsuit where you marked earlier. When pinning the skirt, make sure the seam allowance is open. If the skirt is too big or too small for the waist, you might have to stretch a little as you sew. I used a zigzag stitch since this is going to be going around my waist. This is what it should look like so far. If you're doing a 2-piece, you might want to fold down the hem at the waist so it has a cleaner look. Hemming the bottom of the skirt is optional. I left it with the raw edge. I washed it and I went swimming with it, and it never frayed or curled, so that's a plus. Less work to do. Place the swimsuit right sides together by lining up the side seams and the midpoints. Make sure the lining on the top part of the swimsuit is lined up with the printed fabric as well. Place the skirt inside to get them right sides together all around. Now that you have it all pinned together, sew around the edges with the zigzag stitch. Make sure you cover the old stitchings so when you flip it inside out, you don't see the first zigzag stitch you sewed. Now you're done making a cute retro pinup swimsuit. Thank you so much for watching. Thumbs up this video if you enjoyed it and subscribe!